All right, I think it says we're live. So, all right, hey everyone, how are you? My name is Megan Heyza. I do a few different things in the community, but today I'm excited to continue our series on conversations around self-care, mental health, inclusivity, and to bring my guest on today, Erika Holston. She deals with relationships, but I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Hey Megan, well, it's a pleasure to be here. So, my name is Erika J. Holston. I am a certified relationship and dating coach. I primarily help singles to overcome their dating issues and to meet Mr. or Miss Right when it comes to getting married. And then I love helping couples overcome their communication, trust issues, and for them to rekindle their fire. So, I'm super excited to be here today.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you. I know we've had an opportunity to have a lot of conversations, and I've heard you talk about relationships in different forms and different contexts. So I'm really excited to bring it live and share with other people. So tell me like a little bit about yourself so people can get to know you. I know that you're a wife and different things like that, just so we can kind of understand who you are.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I just love love, right? I just love talking about relationships because it's just so much components that actually go into having a healthy and loving and caring relationship. And so I just remember, I just want to basically talk about, when I was a single woman and I was in a relationship, since we're going to be talking about relationships and self care. So I used to be a woman where I used to give a man my all my time, all my love. And I just felt like I was just pouring into the relationship more than what he was doing. And so I had reached a point in the relationship every time where I just really just started to feel depleted. I just started to feel like, am I in like a one person relationship? I don't know if you ever experienced like a one person relationship, because relationships are supposed to be about two people loving each other, building trust, communicating with each other, growing together, and like all those things. But I just thought to myself, like, you know what? My standards are too low. And so I had to have a good self talk to myself. Like, Erika, girl, you need to get it together. You need to raise up your standards. You need to actually look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what is it that you want from yourself? What is it that you want from a man? And so that was a vital, pivotal point in my life to where I just said to myself, okay, raising the standards, loving myself, and I am going to date men who actually pour into the relationship just like I would.
Awesome. Yes, that's awesome. I know you are like a queen when it comes to relationships and knowing how to be in one and maneuver and teach people how to kind of understand themselves in terms of relationship. So obviously our conversation is going to center around self-care. So I want to start off by asking you, what does self-care mean to you personally, apart
Yeah.
from a relationship? Because it's so different for everyone. I'm going to say something different than you would. So I think that's an important place to start.
Yeah. So self care means to me that I actually am self aware and I listen to myself as to the things that I need for myself. So, me as a woman, I love to go and get massages. So, one of my self care routines, like every quarter, or I would say at least twice a year, I'll go out to get a massage because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel rejuvenated and it just makes me feel like I just love myself. And another thing that I love to do is like getting my nails done. But more importantly, I just think self care is for me to listen to myself and ask myself, Erika, what is it that you need? What is it that you need as the woman? What is it that you need as the professional? What is it that you need as the coach? And so, whatever is on my heart or whatever is on my mind, and if it's going to benefit me to feel better, if it's going to benefit me to be vibrant, if it's going to benefit me to grow as the woman, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and that's I love that you said like everything is like how is it going to benefit me? How is it going to make me more vibrant? Because oftentimes when you say like we're professionals or we're working or we have somebody that we go home to, we spend so much time thinking about other people. But self-care, you have to be willing to say, "Hey, I'm important in this moment and I need to figure out how I can be more centered or be more monitored or be more happy in that moment." That
Exactly.
I love how you explained that.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
so you said you do massages. Are there any other things that you do to take time for yourself?
Yeah, so I like to go and work out. I like to pray. I like to meditate. I like to do things that's going to help me show up better each and every day. It's like self care isn't you depriving yourself, self care isn't you like putting someone else before yourself. Self care is looking within yourself and saying to yourself, this is what I need and this is what I'm going to do. And let's say you can't actually do that very thing in that very moment, it's okay. Like you can either save up your money and actually look towards that thing and reward yourself at whatever that is for you and make the best of it. So, I hope that's helpful to someone.
Yeah, for sure. Because I always love starting the conversation around self care, around like that personal thing, because like you say, massages or praying, or like mine would be completely different. So I just always think it's interesting to kind of normalize that self care will looks different, sounds different, feels different for everyone. So now we're really going to dive into the relationship part of self-care because me, I'm not experienced in relationships like I've shared with you. I'm somebody who's been single most of my life, probably the entirety of my life. So I want to kind of ask you how self-care and relationships can be monitored. So the first thing I wanted to kind of dive into is um, why is personal self-care or mental health maintenance so important to keeping a healthy relationship?
Yeah, so mental health is so important in the relationship because you need to be able to think clearly. Not only do you need to be able to think clearly for yourself, but you need to think clearly as far as like how your relationship is going. And so when it comes to your mental clarity, like, maybe for you, it is actually journeying in order for you to decompress or for you to get your thoughts out because we're just so busy and we live in a virtual world and there's so many things that's coming at you. And so a lot of times things can just start to seem like bog you down. So when it comes to mental health, you need to have a release each and every day. Or maybe for you, you might not actually, experience stress like I do or like the next person. So maybe for you, a release is actually, you doing whatever it is that you need to do on a weekly basis. So I would just say, if you need to take out your stress, maybe journal, maybe exercise, maybe even go for counseling. Maybe you need someone who is trained as far as like a therapist or a counselor, just to make sure that your mental health is good. So I hope that that's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you're in a relationship, it's not just like you have to make sure your mental health is okay. You have to make sure that your partner's is. Because if it's off in either way, the relationship can be off. The communication, the happiness, or how you move in that similar or same space. That is very helpful.
Sure.
Obviously, when you're talking about like self care or a relationship in like individually or in a relationship, it looks different. So like, why do you think it's so important when somebody thinks about getting into a relationship to already understand how they can maintain their own personal self-care?
Yeah, like this, I mean, the number one thing when it comes to relationships is knowing like who you are and knowing like what value you bring to the relationship, but also too like what is it or how is it that you want your relationship to look like? Because if you want your relationship to be loving, you want the communication to be built, you want the trust to be built, you want to be able to compromise with each other, like you want all these things, and you need to learn how to pick out that person who is going to be healthy for you, who is not only going to be beneficial to you, but that's going to be healthy and beneficial for the whole relationship. Because again, you don't want to get into a toxic relationship where you just feel like someone is just dragging you down, or someone isn't actually bringing the value that you want to the relationship. So, you just need to, again, know who you are. Take that time to discover yourself. Actually, have your standards and know exactly like what it is that you want. And if been through a toxic relationship before, or you've been through something that you didn't want to happen before, then know what those red signs or red flag signs look like before you even get into a relationship with someone. And then when you actually meet someone that's good for you, that, brings the best out of you, that actually helps you to grow, like, you are not only going to appreciate that person, but guess what? You're going to appreciate yourself because you took that self discovery time, you set your standards, and you found someone who was beneficial not only for you, but the whole relationship.
Mm. Yeah, and that's like, I think that's really important. I know just from personal experience, I spent a lot of time when I would try to talk to somebody thinking like, oh, they'll fix me, or oh, I don't need to fix this because I'll be happy when I'm with them. But like that self-care and that like you can't maintain a happy relationship if you and yourself aren't happy. So I always think it's interesting to think about like you have to find that way to be comfortable and happy with who you are before you extend it to another person. Do you mind if
Exactly.
I ask, do you mind sharing how you met your husband or your partner?
Oh yeah, I would love to. Okay, so my husband and I, we have a mutual friend, and he said that he was going to have a party, and I was like, okay, I want to go to this party since our friend is in town or whatever. And so I went to the party, and I looked. So it was a whole bunch of people in the kitchen, and so I was just looking in the room, and I was just greeting everybody. I was saying hello. And then when I turned my eyes on my husband, or my future husband, girl, I had an oh my God moment, like, oh my goodness, who is this?
We're fine.
Exactly. Yes, the brother was fine. And I was like, oh my goodness, I would love to know who is this milk chocolate right here. And so so he was sitting in the seat, and then he rose up, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, he's the height that I love for a man to be. And we just started talking with each other, just asking each other questions, and just really getting to know each other. But I'll say this is that I believe it was love at first sight, because it was just so easy to talk with my husband. And that's like one of the things that I really do hope for singles and couples, that you find someone that's easy to talk to, or someone that makes you feel like you've been knowing this person forever. And when you find that connection, it's just so beautiful. And so, yeah, so that's how I met my husband, was through a mutual friend, and I experienced a oh my God moment.
Love at first sight. I'm like, yeah, I think that's awesome that you believe in that because you found that. I think it was really interesting though because as you were telling it, you're like, oh, I seen him, and you're like, he was the height that I liked, and he was like fine looking, and he was easy to communicate, and it almost sounds like you knew yourself enough to know who you wanted. And like, how do you think that benefits you or can benefit other people in terms of knowing yourself? Because there was just that comfortability when you said you met him where you're like, I know myself, I know what I want, and you're able to grow from that.
Yeah, like, let me tell you, Megan. I was in a 6 month relationship before I had met my husband, and let me be honest, I just felt like I'm done. Like, I'm done. I don't even want to be in a relationship no more. Like, I just shut everything down, and I actually went on a self healing journey. Like, I prayed to God. I really, evaluated like Is it something in me that I'm attracting the certain type of men? And what is it that I can do, or how is it that I can ask a man questions to really help me speed up the process? And so when I took that time to heal, when I took that time to, again, to self-care for myself, that helped me to recalibrate myself. That helped me to understand it's very important to know what to focus on, because a lot of times we need to focus on ourselves. We need to focus on what is it that's going to make you happy. Again, what kind of relationship do you want to have? And how can you attract Mr. Right? Or how can you actually attract Miss Right? And so when I took that time and I came to that self discovery moment, I felt like I was ready for a relationship. But it was also, too, Mr. Holston actually took that time to learn about himself. He actually took a decompression time, and a not a sabbatical, but just a time just for himself as a man. And it's just so funny, at the same time, we were doing the same thing. We were getting to know ourselves. And then when we came to get to know each other, it was just amazing. But we took that time for ourselves. And it's just so important.
Yeah. And I actually, like, when you brought that up, I like thought, stop for a minute, because not only did you take the time to discover yourself, your partner did as well. And that's really important when you're thinking about getting into a relationship. You know, I could be completely set and I could know what I want and all these things. But if I find a man who, or a woman who isn't there yet, it's something that you have to be able to kind of like give them time or space to discover, and say maybe now's not the right time. What I don't know if I'm going to word this question right, because it's like on the top of my head, but what do you think is some, like, how did you know that he was ready, or how did you know that he had taken that time, or he was comfortable or grounded in who he was? Because I think sometimes we can get caught up in people that aren't grounded, so the things can shift or change over time.
Yeah. Um, so, what I'm getting ready to say to you, it might actually surprise you. I actually came up with dating questions, and these are even questions that I even share with people in my Honey Love Dating Academy. But one of the questions that I had wanted a man to answer for me was, how long have you been on your job? And I'll tell you why I wanted him to answer this question, because I was looking for a man who had been on his job for more than 5 years, because I knew if a man could actually be on his job for at least 5 years, that he was stable, that he had a good work ethic, and he knew how to problem solve. Now, I'm not saying if you are only on your job for 6 months or a month or 2 years that you're not stable. But what I am saying is this: as a woman, I needed a man who could not only be stable on his job, but to show me that he could be stable in his relationships. And so, also too, just thinking about the type of job that he had. So he was like in a lead role as well. And so that was important, because I wanted a man who could actually lead. And so I know that I'm giving like two very specific situations. And I'm saying that because I think for women, they need a man who is stable. They need a man who is trustworthy. They need a man who is full of integrity. They need a man who knows how to build trust with people. And I think that, if you look at the job scenario, that can actually show you what type of person you're actually dealing with. And so when I was able to ask him questions like, so how long have you been on your job? Or, what is your relationship like with your mom? And so when he was able to answer those things, I already knew in the back of my mind how I wanted him to answer, because I've been self-caring, I've been self-loving on myself, I've been doing the work in the background. And so when he answered those things properly, or when he even exceeded my expectations, I thought to myself, like, wow, like I got a Mr. Right on my hands. And so, I need to make sure that I don't do anything to mess this up.
You're like, I'm not gonna fumble, right? Yes. No, and I think that's important too, because I would have never thought to ask somebody that. If you're talking about like how long someone's on the job, but you're right, it shows stability, or are you willing to work for it? Can you like work through certain scenarios? That's an awesome question. I'm gonna add that to my list. Um,
Yes.
Yeah, and I think also something that you point out with like having a like it helps your self-care if you have somebody around you who does have that integrity, who has that like self awareness or self discovery to be able to handle being on a job. Because I mean, I know jobs and like they bring on these scenarios where you have to problem solve. And if you're willing to take the time to do that, to find a way to fit, you're also going to find somebody and do that in the same, right? So it plays into that element of self care so purely. You are a very smart one. Yeah, I'm going to join your academy because that's
Okay.
a really good point. So when it comes to self-care in a relationship, so now you found a man, you've discovered like, oh, he has these certain elements that I like, I'm attracted to, and we can communicate. How do you, or how can people go about making sure that your partner is maintaining that self-care?
Yeah, so one of the ways that your partner can add value to your self care is for you to say what your core needs are. So, having that open dialogue, and when you reach a certain point to where you can be open and vulnerable and transparent with each other, like things are going to start to blossom like very quickly. So, for you, if you say, "Hey, I need you to be consistent when we have our phone conversations." So, if you talk to each other like every morning before work, or if you talk to each other like every evening, like communicate that to him, like, and say like, hey, like, when we talk every morning or we talk every evening, it shows me that you care. It shows me that you value my time. It shows me that you actually think about me, and I need to know that I am a priority for you. And so when you let your man or your woman know, whatever the case may be, when you let them know that by having that open conversation, and you let them know the benefits of it. Don't just say like, oh, I need good morning texts and I need good night texts. Like, it's so important to add context to those things and say like, why is it? And how does that make you feel? I mean, some things are given, like, good morning text is like, oh, they're thinking about me. But if you really take a deep dive and say, these are what I feel, these are the things that I feel, and this is how our relationship can benefit, like, they're going to think to themselves like, wow, like, you have a good point. And if a man wants to pursue after you, if a man wants you, if a man wants to not only have a relationship with you or possibly wants to get married, like, he's going to do everything he needs to do in order to catch you.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, that's true. Cause they're going to chase, they're going to catch what they want. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it kind of boils down to like that communication, right? Even with yourself when you're talking about self-care. At least this is what I took away from it. Like if I'm talking about self-care for myself, I may wake up one day and like, oh, I'm having an off day. I'm not going to make decisions today. Oh, I'm going to take a bath because I'm tired, or I don't have capacity to do that. So you're just saying like, you have to be aware that that self and inward conversation for self-care has to be extended to your partner. To make sure that you guys are maintaining that together.
Exactly. And you bring up a good point, because a lot of times us as, I think women may do it a little bit more than men. Like, we have our own internal conversation, and we don't share exactly like our real thoughts or our real feelings like with the other person. And sometimes, some people may have an issue with trusting the other person, or sometimes people actually have a hard time communicating how it is that they feel. But if you want your relationship to grow, if you want to go beyond the entry level of your relationship, which is what I call the honeymoon stage, because when you get down to the nitty gritty of and the core of your relationship, like, it's actually something that you have to work towards together. So it's just so important to not only, have those inner conversations with yourself, but be willing to open up a little bit. And sometimes people say, well, oh, Erika, I can't do that because I don't don't know if this is the one yet. And I get it, but I want to share a tip with you. And that would be to actually just give him a little bit or give her a little bit and see what they do with it. And if you can build trust, if you can actually, have that open ended conversation, that they would appreciate you because they're going to start to feel an emotional connection with you. And that's what we all want, right? Like we want love. We want, not to say that you get your validation from someone else, but we kind of do want to be affirmed and we kind of do want to be validated. And I think that's what relationships are all about. So, yeah, to your point, definitely share your inner feelings. And if you have a hard time trusting people, please remember just to give them a little bit and see what they do with it. And you'll be surprised how much more fulfilling your relationship could be.
I love that you said just give them a little bit and see what they do with it, because I struggle with that sometimes, like having the element of trust. I keep a lot of things close to my heart. So it's like, that's a good point where like, yeah, it's easy. It would be easier for me to like open a little bit as opposed to open the floodgates. And if they fumble with it, you extended that, but it's not the right person or the not the right time. What suggestions or what advice would you give to somebody who's in a relationship who maybe doesn't feel like that had that element of communication around self-care or mental health? How's like, what would be something like a way that they could better it, or a way they could reevaluate their relationship?
Yeah. So again, like being able to, maybe schedule some self care time and, actually, have a meeting with yourself first, right? And just say, is this relationship going the way that I want it to? And am I experiencing some deal breakers? Or what is it that can actually help me to be the man or woman that that person needs? And if you say to yourself, well, I can't be who this person needs me to be, yep, this relationship is toxic, like it's obviously maybe time to reevaluate the direction of the relationship. But let's say things are going well, where the person is helping you to grow, where the person is trying to be there for you. And let's just say that you're just having a hard time mentally just dealing with life, and you really see that that person wants you to win, then have a conversation with them and just say, hey, like, I know that I've been seeming off a little bit and I just been going through a tough time. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate everything that you're doing for us. And I appreciate, how you've been giving me my space and you've been able to be a good support system for me. And then they're going to be like, oh, yeah, like, sure, like, this is great. And let's say also, too, like, you're having an issue with, not feeling that connection, but yet that that person again wants the relationship to win. Then just say like, hey, like these are the things that I want us to do in our relationship. Or maybe we don't talk as much and we're actually able just to talk once a day instead of twice a day because I just need a little bit of me time. And if that person loves you, they're going to say, okay, I understand that you need a little mental break, and that's okay. So it's just more or less just listening to each other, being a good support to each other. But again, we're going back to the self care, having that conversation with yourself, having that inner conversation, but then two, going to the person and saying like, these are the things that are working in this relationship, or these are the things that are not working in a relationship. And so you'll just be surprised like how overall that the relationship is going to blossom, especially if they're meeting your needs, they're meeting your expectations, and they are the person that you want them to be, but also too that you're able to grow together.
I love it. That's and something that you said made me kind of think of something else that I wanted to follow up on. So, if you have a partner where you're like in a relationship with them and you're like, oh, I think that they may need a little bit more self care. What would
Mhm.
be a way that we can approach that, or you can approach that in a relationship in a empathetic or a way that isn't offensive? I know, especially like as females, and when you're in a relationship with a man, sometimes it can be, you can come, I always get this complaint that I come off too headstrong or like I'm being offensive. So how can we approach that question or that conversation in a I can't think of the word, a soft way, I guess?
Yeah. So, um, I'm I want to share a personal story. So, when my husband and I were dating, I felt like I was smothering him, and he needed some space. And so, at first, I didn't understand. I'm just like, what? Everything that we have going on is great. Like, what's the problem? And he's just like, I just need a little bit of me time. And so I had to step back and not get upset and not only think about myself, but think about what he needed. And when I thought about what he needed, I had to say to myself, Erica, the best way that you can love him right now is to give him his space. And that was a game changer for me. And so, if you're looking for more specific examples, how you can actually approach it, I would just say that, you could just say to them, like, hey, like, I see that you're having a tough time, and I want to love you the way that you want me to love you. I don't want to love you the way that I want to love you. I want to love you the way that you need for me to love you. And so, whatever that person says, like, hey, I just need a little break, or hey, like, I just need to hang out with the fellas, or hey, I need to have me some girl time, and just be a good support for that person.
And I think that that actually kind of just brought the conversation full circle, because when we talk about self-care, it's a personalized thing. So like it's like, oh, I need this. But when you talk about loving somebody and giving them self-care, it's a personalized thing for them as well. So like you said, it for that, for him, for your husband specifically, it was like, I need more me time. But
Yep.
it could be whatever they say, you're gonna love yourself how you need to be loved. You have to love them how they need to be loved as well.
Yeah. And I just want to add this is that when they say that they need something, like, really listen, and don't like just like force yourself on them and just say, oh, you don't need that. Like, and it's just like, wait a minute, this is what I said that I need. And I know me better than you know me at this time. So I want you to listen to what it is that I have to say. Because a lot of times, even as women and men, we just think like, oh, they don't mean that. They don't mean that, and you just let it go straight over your head. But if you really love that person, if you really cherish that person, if you really want your relationship to be long lasting, vibrant, and you possibly want that relationship to go to a marriage, like, listen to them and believe what they say the first time, because they're telling you what it is that they need. And all I'm asking is, if you don't like what it is that they're saying, let them know that. But also to evaluate and ask yourself, like, why do I have such a problem with that? Like, is it because of my own selfish reasons? Is it because I just want what I want and I don't care what they need? But if it's a two-person relationship where you're actually valuing each other, you're actually bringing value to the relationship as one unit, you're going to love that person the way that they need you to love them, and they are hopefully going to love you the way that you need them to love you. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's what it boils down to, right? No, I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I feel like we just went full circle with the self-care. Is there anything that maybe I missed or something you wanted to add to the conversation?
Yeah, so only thing that I had just wanted to add to the conversation is, think about yourself like a cup. Like, you know what it is that you're made of. You know your values, you know what you want out of a relationship, you know what love means to you. And so when it comes to, self-care, when it comes to being the woman or the man that you need to be for you, like, make sure that your cup is full. Because if you are in a relationship with a man or with a woman and you don't have anything to give to them, 9 times out of 10, you're going to look to that person, you're going to ask them to pour into you. But a real relationship is actually me as a woman having my cup, my husband as the man having his cup, and us like pouring into our own cup where it's self-care, where it's self-love, and is becoming a better person each and every day. And so my husband is able to get the overflow of what I've been working on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. So again, please don't, go into toxic relationships. Please don't go into a relationship on E and expect for Mr. or Miss Right to pour into you and to make the relationship what you want it to be, but actually be willing to do the work from within and add value to your relationship. Because once you do that, like, you're going to experience the overflow. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So remind us, think of ourselves as a cup, right? So before we head out, I actually want to ask you, you do Honey Love Academy. Can you let the people know what that is that are watching?
Yeah. So the Honey Love Dating Academy is for professional women where we talk about dating, we talk about self love, and we talk about dating scenarios and what is it that you want in Mr. Right, and how can you set yourself up to be wife material if you so desire to be married. Not everyone in the academy wants to be married, but they just really enjoy having the conversations, learning about men, learning about the characteristics about men, as well as how to talk with the man. And so we meet twice a month, and it's every second and fourth Tuesday. And we just have a really good time. And I basically, have presentation slides, you get recordings, and you get a whole bunch of benefits. And, let me just tell you that the women are not settling. And it's not to say that men don't settle, because men do settle sometimes too. But when you have the tools that you need in order to choose Mr. Right, that it is just phenomenal. So, if you want to join the Honey Love Dating Academy, please just let me know and message me, and I would love to help you. And then also, too, I'm going to have a singles Valentine's Day celebration and a couples Valentine's Day celebration, and I'll put those in the comments once we end our live. Um, but let me ask you, Megan, do you want to ask anyone if they have questions? Because we can go to the comment sections and ask them if they have any questions, because I would love to answer them.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I see a few comments. I've been following them, but if anybody has any questions before we go, please drop them in there. And we'll wait a second to have them. So I actually, while we're to see if anybody has any, what was your? I know you said that you took time to like do find discover what your self-care looked like. Do you want to kind of share what that journey looked like for you? Because I know for myself it was really long, and it was treacherous, and it was painful, and there was tears. So like, do you mind sharing a little bit about yours?
Yeah. So I'm 38, and my self-care journey really started about 15 years ago. I mean, I was like almost 300 pounds, and I, discovered that I really needed to lose some weight. And I just went on this self-care healing journey, and I lost like 100 pounds in a year. And I just thought, like, if I show up to be the best version of myself, that not only am I going to be a good support for myself, but I'm going to be able to love someone else. And so, that was the first thing that I did. And then, secondly, I just really started to read books about relationships and what entails with relationships. What is a good wife? What is a good husband? Like, what does marriage like really look like? And so when I started to inform myself, because your girl wasn't getting things right in relationships. I mean, I was going from toxic relationship to toxic relationship. I've had two. And I just thought to myself, like, this isn't it. Like, I'm doing something wrong. I have to do something different. Like, if you keep on doing the same thing the same way, that's crazy or that's insanity. What's that saying? I can't remember.
I think it's insanity. I don't know.
Yeah, it's insane. It's just like, wait a minute, if you want something to change, you actually have to do something different, or you have to inform, you have to educate yourself. And so I just started to educate myself. And then I just really just started to ask myself, like, what is it that I like? What do I want to do? And I just started to build up my career, and I started to save up my money. If it was something that I wanted, something that I needed, I would just save up the money and just get things or whatever. But I just really became really aware. And it's been a 15-year process. And it's like one of the best things that I could have ever done for myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you said it's like it's been a 15-year process. Like it's still going on. It, self-care doesn't stop and is changing. Just like our taste can change over time. Our self-care can look different over time. So I
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. Because I
Yeah.
know when I think about self-care, like I said, it's like this long journey of and you. I love how you said you sought out answers because I
Mhm.
think sometimes because we're thinking about self-care, we think all the answers come from inside and like inside ourselves, but you have to be able to seek more knowledge because that knowledge adds to what you're seeking within yourself. So I love that you brought that up as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
I seen a few comments on here, but I didn't see any questions. If you do have any questions, if you're catching this live on the replay, please drop them in the comments. I know me or Erica will take the time to answer them.
Yes. Yeah. So it's definitely, been a pleasure just talking about relationships. And I'll just say that if something isn't going right, now is the time to inform yourself or get educated, to get a coach, or just to be willing to have a conversation with each other, because there's no point in keep on going around the same cycle over and over and over again, especially if you feel disappointed, you're feeling sad, or you're even starting to feel angry. So, get the help that you need. So that's like one of my last words.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit here with me and talk about relationships. As an inexperienced relationship person, it was great to hear and listen to you talk about things that you've learned and things that you help people learn along the way.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to thank everyone for tuning in. I will be here next Thursday having another conversation about self-care and mental health. So please tune in then. Erika, you have a wonderful night, and to everybody watching, have a wonderful night.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.